Yes, I've done it. I must have found the buried treasure. It's right under here. Because X marks the spot, of course.
Hello everyone, and welcome to a Ninjago 2022 set review. Today, we're taking a look at set number 71775, Nia's Samurai X Mech. The set contains approximately 1,003 pieces, will retail in the United States for about $119.99, we'll round up to $120, and will hit shelves in the US August 1st, though I believe that it comes out a little earlier in other places, namely June. Before we get started, I do want to thank LEGO for sending this to us. They sent this for the purpose of review, so this is a sponsored video. However, I want to stress that everything I say in this video is uninfluenced. It is my personal opinion through my experience with this model and what I think of it, and what I would like to let you know about my thoughts. Alright, so this is very exciting. We have a large mech to talk about, we have really great minifigures to talk about, and I want to answer the question, is this Ninjago's best mech yet? Well, stay tuned and find out. I'm Eljay, let's get started. Starting things off, let's talk about the build. So I've captured some footage here of the building process. I didn't want to show all of it because there are some neat things that I want potential buyers to experience for themselves. The build, however, I thought was really fun. I had a good time with it. It wasn't massively complex. I was always quite engaged, and nothing felt particularly frustrating or obnoxious. Some items of note to point out. I really love the leg design. We can see here that the mech does, in fact, have knees that articulate forward and back, and they're created using these traditional ball and socket joints, quickly known as constructible action figure joints. And we can see these are a new design for 2022. They're far more industrious, they're tougher than previous designs, and they work very well. You have 3 of them in each knee, and they work very well. So I thought that was neat. Additionally, we have 2 new blade pieces of the large figure scale. We have this golden one for the mech itself. It looks kind of like a jagged sword. And I like it. It's fine. There's not a whole lot of detail to it. And it's kind of got a slightly vague shape, or at least not as well defined and stylistic as some other blade designs, but that's perfectly fine. It looks good. We also have these transparent pink blade pieces. They're a lot more jagged and crystalline, and they actually connect via axle. These look really, really cool. I like both blade pieces, and they're both going to see a lot of great use in different mocks. A lot of utility from both. Overall, I really did enjoy the building process. I thought it was fun and engaging, as I said, and there are a lot of creative building techniques involved. And we'll get into that in just a moment. Let's start small. I want to talk about this small dragon build here. I think this is fine. In my opinion, it's probably the weakest part of the full set. I think that it serves its conflict in a box purpose. We can see it has some points of articulation. It's got 2 in the legs, 1 in the arm if you aren't counting the fingers, and 1 in the neck. We do get a new recolor, the CCBS leg piece in purple, which is nice to see. However, as a consequence, that means that the arms don't have any further articulation beyond the 2 fingers, as well as the shoulder. The back legs are small, which I believe is an intentional design choice to make this feel more like kind of a gargoyle, one of the small scrappy ones you would see. The angular nature, as well as the studs on top, do make it feel a little out of place, this leg design. However, by and large, it's quite passable. It's functional, so I don't have a lot to complain about. The head, however, is probably where I'm let down the most. We do have these new crystalline pieces, these minifigure blades, connected into Exoforce arms that act as kind of like a jaw, but it's a little deceiving because they're 2 blade pieces that come down, but the head design still makes it look like there's a jaw there. So it doesn't actually feel like a jaw is moving, because otherwise there is no jaw articulation on this head. We do get this dragon piece without printing, new in this transparent pink, as well as gunmetal. That's cool to see. It's a really striking piece, and I could see a lot of mockists getting a lot of use out of it. All in all, it's a fine build, it serves its purpose, but it isn't anything I'm going to write home about. Now let's move on to the mech. So right out the gate, the mech is huge. It is taller than Zane's Titan mech from 2021, and it's just really impressive. The build is a lot of fun. It's a sturdy design. I didn't find a whole lot of parts falling off of this, and the look of it is fantastic. I really did have to fight Haley for this one, and by fight Haley, I mean beg. I begged a lot. There was a lot of begging that went into this review, but I digress. I had to request to review this because the actual design of this mech is just straight out of Power Rangers, and I grew up on Power Rangers, specifically Ninja Storm, which again, this feels like it's very reminiscent of. The color scheme being black, gold, this dark azure, the splashes of red, it just really screams Power Rangers. And for that, I'm really jazzed about it. We do get some new recolors, specifically these cockpit pieces, the windshields. They come back in gold and solid black, and they make this transitionary piece from the lower leg to the thigh. They act as knee armor, which I think is super clever. Design-wise, it fits in very well. The color scheme is great, and it looks kind of like this mech has boots on. Kind of, I don't know how to put it, samurai boots, almost. It's very aesthetically pleasing to look at. We do get a new piece. It's a golden system shell piece, and that has a design kind of reminiscent of the upper thigh armor piece in blue. So it's very aesthetically consistent, and it's a new piece. So that's going to really intrigue some mochists. Speaking of the legs, as far as stability is concerned, this mech is kind of 50-50. So on the one hand, yes, we are getting knees again. That is really cool to see. This design does differ from the design seen in Zane's Titan mech from 2021, in that it doesn't use mixel joints, it uses construction ball joints. The issue being, in order to have this knee articulation to the degree it has, the compromise was the ankle articulation had to be heavily downsized, and you feel it in this mech. Despite the fact that the foot design has a new means of stabilizing so that it can kind of grip on slick surfaces a little better, non-carpeted surfaces, unfortunately, because of the restrictions placed by the ankles, it's really hard to get a great range of motion out of the addition of these knees. The ankles are confined, so you really only are getting maybe, 2 to 4 poses total that look really, really dynamic without greatly affecting the stability of this set. Additionally, up at the hips, you have a lower level of kind of hip articulation. It only really goes out to a certain point, and because of that, and the ankles, you're really limited in what you can do. So by and large, you can't really pose it in ways that you would want to, that you'd expect from, say for instance, one of the small Marvel mechs that you see. The difference being the Marvel mechs are very small scale. They don't have a lot of weight of which they have to worry about, so stability-wise, they have a lot more leeway. This is a very large and very heavy model, and as such, it needs a lot of these mobility-limiting designs in order to just keep it stable to begin with. So that being the case, I am a little bothered by how limiting the articulation is, kind of in the upper and lower leg, so not the knee. However, I understand why it has to be this way, so while I'm a little disappointed by that, I can accept it because the creation can stand. This mech will stand, and you can get some poses out of it that look really imposing and really action-packed. So that being the case, I accept it. I still think this is a really impressive looking mech. Moving up to the arms, again, really cool design work. However, I do feel that the arms are the weakest part of this model for a handful of reasons. First of all, we do have the shoulder pauldrons up top, and they do have blasters in them. And they're not flick fire missiles, they're spring launched. And you press down on the back and psh, out goes the projectile. I do feel like they sit a little far off of the shoulders, so they do feel a tad disconnected from the rest of the model. However, you can orient them in a certain way because they're on a mixel joint so that they kind of cover up that gap and feel more like a part of the armor than they otherwise would. Again, aesthetic-wise, they're very consistent. They look really good. Moving down the arms, the forearms are a little peculiar. Again, the color blocking is really great, though I do feel like the spaces around the elbow and around the wrist are just a little long. Unfortunately, given their designs, there's no way around it. There's not really a fix. There are no pieces that you can really attach to those areas to cover up those kind of long sections, especially in the wrist. So while I'm not thrilled about how that looks necessarily, I can also perfectly accept it, and it isn't going to bring this model down in my eyes by any meaningful degree. The hand design really surprised me. It scared me at first because when you're first asked to build one of these hands, which look really good, I think the design is straightforward and effective. But when you're first asked to design one of these hands, you design the sword into the hand. And that scared me because I really didn't want to have a mech that had a sword built into the hand so you couldn't remove the blade. Fortunately, the design is actually really smart, where you can remove the sword and still have the hand and the sword intact. I really love that. I think that was a genius design decision, and I'm very pleased to see that come through. Moving to the torso, this is probably one of the more controversial areas of this model, given that it is a very large, very blocky, bright red X, because it's a Samurai X mech. Personally speaking, I don't think there's a huge problem with this design. I think the way that it was done was very impressive. It works with the model. It's very obvious, yes, but I don't think it's out of character, especially with previous Samurai X designs. My one issue with it is that I feel that the lower parts of the X do come out a little more than they should. They feel a lot chunkier than the top two portions. So it does feel like some of that streamlined appearance, that streamlined build, is broken up a bit by these lower two portions of the X. They do feel a smidge more disconnected than the rest of the model, so I'm not thrilled about that. However, again, they do curve back toward the back of the model pretty well, so you do retain some curvature. It's just not quite as streamlined as maybe we might have wanted it to be. We do have another function here, because there is a cockpit. You can move the headpiece up. It just comes up like so, and you can place Nia's minifigure in there. Now, just as a heads up, you're going to need to take her swords off, and you're going to need to move the headpiece, that golden, I don't really know what you call this, but the blades that are on her helmet, you're going to need to move them either forward or back. Otherwise, the top of this will not close. She'll also need to be sitting down, which of course makes sense. Some mechs, the pilots stand, but most of them do sit, which is totally fine. Then you can close it back up, and she is in the mech. By and large, though, you can't see her, so this is really only a play functionality, which is totally fine. In order to be a mech, it does need to be piloted, and some other reviewers on this channel have critiqued mechs for not allowing a pilot to sit in it, making them not mechs, just big robots. So I do appreciate that you have that option. That is a functionality that's appreciated. Finally, moving up to the head. The head, I think I need to retract a statement I made earlier. The arms are not my least favorite part of this. It is going to be the head. And that's not because it's a bad design. It's very well designed. And I like a lot of the style and the shaping and the parts usage, which is very clever in this design. However, it's also very persnickety. If you're someone that really likes to keep things on the straight and narrow, you like pieces to line up a particular way, you want to keep everything just kind of the way you believe it should be, this head is going to frustrate you sometimes, because the way that the neck connects to the actual torso via a ball joint, a very small one, is through kind of this pinhole that if you turn it expecting it to turn via the ball joint, it's going to turn via the pinhole, which means that in some instances the head will feel misaligned from where it is on the body. And that's going to become really obvious if you turn the head and then go to turn the ball joint, because it's already at a new angle. It's a lot easier to understand when you see it, not so much with me trying to explain it, but when you see it, you'll understand it's a little unusual. It does frustrate me just a smidge, but by and large, it's not a huge problem. I think comparing this to the last big mech with knee articulation, Zane's Titan mech, this one is super impressive. It's bright, it's vibrant, it's got great colors, it's got a great sleek aesthetic that differentiates itself from Zane's Titan mech, and I think that for what it was going for, it nails it. There are a few small things that bother me, but all in all, this is a phenomenal mech. It's got a lot of play value, it has a lot of articulation, it's got a lot of functionality, and it just looks phenomenal. I'm really impressed with how this turned out, but there's no going wrong with either or. They both serve different purposes. This is a taller, sleeker model, and Zane's Titan mech is a shorter, bulkier one. It's got more armor. And it's really great to have that diversity in mech types, especially considering LEGO doesn't have a mech line yet. They used to, but they don't anymore. LEGO, give this man a mech line. I'm serious. That would be amazing. Give it a shot. Moving on to the minifigures, we actually have quite an extensive amount here. The set comes with 8 minifigures, with about 3 of those being villains and the rest being heroes. One of them is a little odd though, because it's Garmadon. So you can see the minifigures here. They're all fantastic. I believe most of these figures, actually all but 2, are exclusive to this set. Focusing on the villains first, we do have a generic henchman, one of the Vengestone warriors. That headpiece is one mold that is not over a minifigure head. This character looks really cool. Some of the transparent pieces just really look fantastic. The new blade piece is really neat, and the headpiece looks very menacing. The printing looks very impressive. We also have Pythor, who for the first time has purple arms, because he hasn't in any other set prior, which is weird. We do have his white head and tail. I'm not sure at this point if the tail printing is unique to this figure or the head printing at this point. I would have to actually look at other Pythors. This is the first one that I've had. So feel free to let me know in the comments below if it's unique or not. I will acknowledge the first one that I see that clarifies that. The printing on Pythor is not unique to him, nor is that new purple chest piece, or shoulder piece, I guess. He does carry a new blade piece, which you are allowed to connect the golden nunchucks to, which is really cool. However, because Pythor has this long head, him holding this almost bow-looking contraption is really difficult, because there's not a lot of room for it to kind of move around because it's going to conflict with his head. Additionally, it makes him very front-heavy, so his balance gets thrown off and he'll fall forward a lot. So you gotta really prop the sword up against the ground, which again is hard because you can't have it going straight up, it clashes with his head. Finally, we have the mechanic. The mechanic has returned. He's got a, I think, brand new head printing. I'm not sure if it differs from his first appearance in Ninjago City Gardens. However, his general design is more or less the same. Again, that torso print is not unique to him. It's shared with Pythor. However, he does have legs, though I don't believe they're specific to him either. He's serviceable, I'll put it that way. Going to the heroes, which are infinitely more interesting, we do have quite a few. Little Nelson, I think, is probably my second least favorite from this. I'm not jazzed by all of the blue on him. I don't know its purpose. It looks fine, make no mistake. I don't think there's any issue with it. It's just not something that I'm jazzed to see because I see him as predominantly a purple clothed character, which of course is here. We do get a recolor of this headpiece, the hair piece, and it's got this neat Woo Crew logo on it. So all in all, it's a very good minifigure. I'm not jazzed that he has this weird flag thing. It makes him very front heavy and difficult to actually stand on non-brick surfaces. Speaking of which, Woo is remarkably back heavy. This is my least favorite minifigure from this set, not because it is bad, but because it is very difficult for me to get to stand in one place without falling down. He's very back heavy. We see the return of the dragon armor from Hunted, as well as more gold on him in his hands, his staff, and his hat. This is a good looking minifigure. Though it is worth noting, I'm not used to Woo coming in a set without a beard piece. That's a little odd. Unfortunately, the big issue is he has this flag on the back, and that makes him very back heavy. So on non-studded surfaces, you really have to bring the staff piece back a lot to get him to stand properly. Otherwise, he's going to fall backwards, and there's nothing you can do about it. Golden Jay is also in this set, and this looks really good. It looks like there were some additions to his base suit for this season, and we'll look at that later in another set. We do have the golden hood with the blue sash on it, and I think that looks good. It's perfectly fine. This is going to look really good in a series of other golden ninja minifigures, and I don't have any great complaints about it. Garmadon is next. We have Oni Garmadon. We have a new print for that Oni mask. We do have some horns, and this is a really cool looking minifigure. There's a lot of similarity in the printing on the gi between Garmadon and Woo, which I think is some good symbolism. And he notably only has 2 arms. We don't know why. We haven't seen that in a very long time, so I'm curious to know more. All in all, he looks very Garmadon-y under the helmet, and he has a traditional Garmadon head, though it's worth noting it's only got one face on it, not two. The actual Oni mask print looks good. I'm not thrilled that the helmet it connects to is gunmetal. I wish that was black. I don't know the reasoning behind that. It just feels a little out of place given that the rest of him is silver, black, or purple. So I wish it was one of those colors instead. And finally, the most controversial minifigure of this set, Nia. This is a good looking Nia minifigure. It's like a culmination of her history. You have a little bit of dark red, you have that dark azure blue, you have gray, or actually that's gunmetal legs, which is really good. You have the gold, which is more of an addition, and of course you have her in a samurai outfit, given her origins as Samurai X initially. This is a good looking minifigure. The head print is the same as it usually is, and the helmet piece is perfectly fine, though I'm not thrilled about how kind of finicky that face guard is. I feel like that comes up a little too often when I want it to stay down, and it just doesn't want to cooperate. Printing is really good, nothing out of the ordinary. It's got leg printing and torso printing on the front and back, so it's a good minifigure. Unfortunately, none of these minifigures come with auxiliary hair pieces, even though there are for several of these characters. That's a little disappointing, but they look good the way they are. I wouldn't really change a whole lot. I do wish that Jay and at least Nia came with their respective hair pieces, and we've been so used to that happening, it's odd to not see it. Overall, is this mech the best Ninjago mech? Ultimately, that's going to be your personal preference. I feel that it is, and if it isn't, it comes really close. It's got a lot of fantastic articulation, it's tall and imposing, it has a bunch of play value. However, I can see arguments for other Ninjago mechs being better than it. Some might say that the Ninja Combo mech is better for its play value, that it incorporates all the original Ninja and that has an alternate mode. Actually, 4 alternate modes, given that it's a bunch of mechs that combine into one. That is a style of mech. Additionally, Zangstein mech is really good. It has better stability and it has knee articulation. However, the knee articulation isn't quite as good, and it is bulkier. It's going for a different aesthetic that some people might not like, and some people might not like its more muted color scheme. This, to me, exemplifies a Ninjago mech. It's bright, it's vibrant, it has this really solid samurai/ninja aesthetic. It's got large swords, it's got functionality through the blasters, through putting the minifigure in there, it's got really great articulation, and I think it just does a really good job of conveying Ninjago as a mech. So I really appreciate it for that, and I am a big fan. The set does retail for about $120 in the United States, and that is a hard price to choke down, especially given that it is only just barely over 1,000 pieces. Personally, I think you can justify it. It has a lot of gold pieces, it's got new pieces, also in gold. It's got 8 minifigures, most of which are exclusive to this set. I think you can work with that price, though I would definitely encourage people to use some VIP points, or maybe if they have a gift card from family, this would be a good one to use that on. So that is everything. That has been my review of Nia's Samurai X mech. What did you think, and what do you think of this set? Let me know in the comments below, and thank you so much for watching. We'll see you all next time for the rest of the Ninjago Summer 2022 set reviews. I'm Eljay. We'll see you there.